All right. Hello and welcome everybody to What's Your Story? I am the life orchestrator millionaire, Dr. Varun Gandhi. Love and abundance, everybody. I love starting the show with just a quick love and abundance to everybody. Thanking everybody for joining here, for being here today. Today, our guest is our first politician on the show. Super excited to have him. His name is Rishi Kumar, and the title of this episode is Getting Things Done in Politics. So, getting things done, I realize that there is a perspective behind it because there's always someone sitting on the other side saying, nah, he ain't getting things done. She ain't getting things done. Or they're not doing the right things. So getting things done, there's always that perspective. And look, we're Indian. So we always have that one family member who opposes that one thing that we do. Everyone else is on our side, but there's always that one person being like, nah, he ain't doing the right things. So getting things done has that element of perspectives. What kinds of things are being done? I think that's very important. But then if you take that a step further and you look at maybe like a crisis situation, it's not the kinds of things that are being done, but who is the person behind these actions, right? What kind of person is stepping up to the plate? Because when you're in crisis mode, you are scrambling. So you're going based off of your values, going based off of what's inside of you. And based on this, you'll find out really why this person is in the game. So I think this is a very important question to understand. Who is this person behind all of these different actions and all of these different initiatives? And that's what we're going to learn today about Rishi Kumar. So everybody that's joining in today, please hit the like button. Please invite a friend to join in with you. And while you're at it, also subscribe to this channel. If you have a question, please post it in the comments below. And I will make sure that Rishi answers all your questions. So who is Rishi? Rishi Kumar is a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, California District 18, and a Silicon Valley high-tech executive. Currently, he is a Saratoga City Council member and is serving his second term. Rishi brings a fiscally moderate, results-driven mindset to politics. As an immigrant and an engineer working for IBM, Rishi found his calling as an activist, stepping up for complex community challenges that he could not ignore. As a council member of Saratoga, he challenged the system, unafraid to be the dissenting vote, and focused on the toughest issues. He led efforts to reject the San Jose Water Company's water rate increases, reduce burglaries, and stop a potential 300-room hotel mega development project on a hillside in a high fire risk zone. In 2018, the people of Saratoga re-elected Rishi with the most votes in the city's history for fearlessly addressing issues deemed daunting by others. Rishi brings a people-centric platform and a track record of getting things done to politics. So Rishi lives in Saratoga with his wife, Seema, who is a networking industry professional, and their two sons. So Rishi, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. You mentioned in your bio that you're an activist. What's that story behind it? How did you get started? And how did you realize that you have this activism inside of you?
Dr. Varun Gandhi, it's such a pleasure to be on. And I really appreciate what you are doing, sprinkling your love and abundance upon people. And the world needs that. It needs compassion. And I think we are on similar paths.
Yes.
We are brothers from another mother. And I'll explain to you what I mean with that. Because my stint in politics, I'm the most improbable politician, which you didn't call me. As a high-tech geek, what does it take for me to morph into a politician? Which is really the story that has happened over the last many years, and hopefully we can talk about it. But essentially, the reason I did what I did was because it was for selfish interest. I realized that when I was out there giving to the world, I was a much happier person. So I kept on giving. I always say this, that there is so much more fun in giving than in taking. And I invite each of our listeners to try that. When you give to the world, it creates an incredible gush of happiness and joy that makes us wake up with a spring in the step, because we are out there fulfilling our mission that we arrived into this world. And I truly believe that it became my calling. Soon as I discovered that path, I realized that this is it. This is really what I want to do. And that's why in the world of politics, I still fearlessly take on challenges. And it's a little bit of following your instincts with things that are happening around you. But it's been a great story so far, and we are running to be represent Silicon Valley in Washington. And Washington has never had a tech savvy leader from Silicon Valley, which is very bizarre, because over the last 4 or 5 decades, Silicon Valley is a global economy. And the 19th largest economy of the world is happening right here in Silicon Valley. And 45% of California's economy is driven by Silicon Valley. So something phenomenal is happening here. And we need a tech savvy leader who can take this economy and make it 10x. That's my plan. Create a lot more jobs, bridge the income inequality, because there are people who are becoming poorer in America, and we need somebody. So growing up in a middle class family back in Bombay, I always say this, that if you take the elevator up, then you got to send it down. And that's my purpose. That's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Wow, that's such an interesting kind of story to how you began. What was that first? You mentioned giving. What was that first kind of experience of giving back that you remember, that you've kind of like cherished that and use that as fuel to push you in this direction?
So we say this, that when I first got started, uh, there was a burglary that happened in my neighborhood. Everything happens around your home, around your neighborhood, that will spark you. And I said, I need to do something. There were a few people that went to the city council and they were complaining. And I'm like, okay, I could have been there, but let me see what action I can take. I'm very action driven. And so I went knocking at my neighborhood. I printed out a small little flyer saying that I want to organize a meeting and I want to formulate a neighborhood group. And the very first guy I knocked on the door, he was a little unhappy senior. He looked at me up and down. He's like, who's this guy? I've never seen him in our neighborhood, because I was still new. And he said, I don't know who you are, but I don't need this stuff here. Please leave. So
Wow.
that would have been the end of my activism and my political career. But I swallowed my pride. I was actually had a very thin skin in those days. It's gotten a lot thicker, and I swallowed my pride and said, okay, let's go to the next door and see what happens. And this is what I do every day. If something doesn't work, I'm still knocking on doors. I'm knocking on doors for the congressional election. And yesterday, it was like I knock doors. Typically, I do it for 3 hours a day. And the first hour was going very badly. I'm like, oh my God, what are these people eating and drinking? Why are they so caustic with me? And then suddenly things opened up. In the next hour and a half, it was like, oh my God, look at these amazing people, right? So that's the day. Every day goes like that. And you live for the high moments. That's it. Simple.
Wow, that's such a fascinating. I'm so glad that you didn't stop. You kept going with this activism. You didn't let that one no stop you at the very beginning. On your website, you kind of have this that you oppose any form of hate against any group, including LGBTQ and religious communities, and you view every group with equality. Also, you mentioned ahimsa, and which is nonviolence, and openness to other views and perspectives. My background is in Jainism. Openness to view other views and perspectives is called anekantvad, which is one of the tenets of Jainism. Ahimsa, which is nonviolence, and anekantvad, which is multiplicity of views. So I grew up in this Jain family, attended Pachala, even though a lot of times I didn't feel like going. Um, but I grew up with some of these values. So in your case, where does that thinking come from? That ahimsa, that kind of bringing people together and that equality of everyone?
Well, there are two aspects to this. One is as a little child reading the books, reading our ancient books, the stories of Rama and Hanuman. They sort of sparked in me a little activism because they were all trying to do the right thing. And in spite of anything, I mean, Rama took on that big fight with Ravan. It was David versus Goliath. Nobody expected Rama to win, and but you are going to put your life on the line no matter what happens, which is really what I'm doing with in the world of politics as well. And that is it. You sort of have to do the right thing, and then the world be damned. Sometimes you're like, okay, I feel that this is the right approach on this, and this is what I'm going to do. And even when there is, for example, things like the Indian pilot was captured a couple years back in Pakistan, and we had a peace rally in San Jose City Hall. They had invited a bunch of elected leaders, and interestingly, I was the only one who showed up there to speak against terrorism. And I was like, what happened to the rest? But everybody's sort of so cautious about it. Everybody wants to look behind and front, and I'm like, look, I'm just going to be authentic, operate with integrity, but be authentic and always be fearless. At the end of the day, when I sit on the city council dais, I feel I'm more of an activist. I'm there for the people. And this is keeps it very simple for me, Varun. Keeps it extremely simple.
That's such an interesting view because there are not a lot of people that are like that. That are in it for the people. A lot of it is they want to grease their own pockets. It's for big business, whatever it is. There's some ulterior motive, some other agenda. So I love that. I really love that because that's the first question. The first thing that popped out in your whole, on your website was this: like you're for the people, and I really enjoy that. Asian hate is another thing that's kind of increased over the last year or so. It's not just one community hating against each other, but I was surprised when there was like a black man who assaulted an older Asian lady. What do you have some like in your plans to kind of address that? What can we do to stop these attacks?
We have to sort of come together. And to some extent, if you look at what's happening in Washington with it's a fight between two kinds of parties. And America has been defined with a red state and a blue state. But no, we are the United States. And I think we need to adopt that approach where we are in this together. And similarly, the more I think of this, this race issue, it will continue to pop out over many years, and there is no clear answer. But if we stop thinking in terms of race, that I'm Asian, I'm black, we are all like Americans here, and even if a new immigrant shows up to this country, you have that background of who you are. But once you are here in this country, you are an American. And if all of us have that similar approach to this, then these race challenges will go away. Because I think it's what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment? And it's that nanosecond thought in your head where you drop the I, right? You drop the I, you drop your ego, and boom, you're enlightened, right?
Right.
Similarly, I think this is a mindset change that needs to happen. And once we drop this thought across race and boundaries and say that we are one humanity, then magic will happen. And we need to morph the American thinking as soon as we can. Now, unfortunately, this is not part of the American teaching in our textbooks. So it starts from the very basic level. It
Hmm.
starts from kindergarten. It starts
Right.
from preschool. We need to start talking about this,
Right.
and we'll create a new generation of Americans who just believe in humanity. And that would be a game changer for sure.
Yeah. How do we do that? Can we like? Does yoga do that? Introducing yoga and for kids, would that help?
Well, I think yoga would definitely help. But it's really so. I'll give you an example, an analogy, right? In Israel, it's in the middle of a desert, and they have huge challenges with water. And they started teaching their kids at a very young age how to conserve water. When they were like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they started talking about it. Now, the amount of conservation that happens with water is incredible. They have farmed out a generation of folks in Israel who totally understand the critical nature of water, right?
Right.
So we need to do something like that with curriculum. I was very fortunate. I was part of the California Department of Education computer science curriculum. And what we have done is we have rolled out a K to 12 computer science curriculum for every public school child in California. Every public school child starting next year will learn some element of programming, right? Where does it start from? It starts from kindergarten, right? So, in fact, my take is education is extremely important. It's a key component of my agenda. And in fact, we need to start from preschool. We need to create public education at the preschool level, because that 0 to 5 are the most formative years.
Right.
And part of that teaching should be spelling out that we are all in this together. It's humanity. We need to respect each other. We probably do that, but we need to bolster that education.
Right. There's a couple of things there. You mentioned education, and I can think about how the current education system is, in a way, the information that they provide is not up to date in one sense, and they also teach things in a different in a perspective, right? They have a particular agenda behind certain things that are being taught. How do you remove all of those things out of the education system and actually teach things that are going to benefit the kids?
Yep, good point. So I think the educators are influencing the education system, and what we need is the mainstream thinking, which is like a convergence of educators, teachers, professors, but also people forming a panel, for example, right? So when
Mm.
we had the California Department of Education Computer Science Strategic Implementation Panel, we had teachers, we had somebody like me, a high tech geek, there sitting there and providing perspective. So we had thought process from different modes of experience and behavior. I think if we created a system like this, our education system is very stagnant. And let me tell you this, Dr. Varun, California is 46th in the country, 46 out of 50. Did you know that? I mean, I love
Wow.
the classic reaction.
What
this
are we doing?
this is like terrible. I think we can do a lot better. And for me, education will be very, very important. Also, the startup education. I think when I look at the high school curriculum, the very first time they take one Java class is by the time you're in 11th grade. We are here in Silicon Valley. They should be living and breathing entrepreneurship. What I've done is I launched the entrepreneurship bootcamp for young kids, Lego robotics. We have trained like a few thousand kids over so many years. Everything we offer we offer it for free. We are trying to teach kids the elements of STEM. So I think we need to cut away the education from the educators and bring in a little bit more of different channels of thought and see how we can tweak it. This is how we can make it better.
That's very interesting. I love that you've brought that in entrepreneurship to kids because, I mean, honestly, I never learned anything about business and how to run a business. And I'm figuring that out right now for myself as I'm doing it, which I love doing it anyways. But I feel like that is one thing that's very lacking, that entrepreneurship spirit, but also the basics and, accounting and all of the kind of the little things that an entrepreneur would really need to know and how to successfully run a business. I think that's very important. One unique aspect of your campaign specifically is that it's very grassroots, right? You speak out against big money in politics, and you don't accept big money in politics. So, can you talk about how the money is harming politics, why you stand against it, and how can we push back against these companies,
I'll,
corporations?
I'll give you a quick example. Great question. And when you look at the pandemic, there are countries across the world where people are dying
Mm,
and they don't have the ability to create vaccinations.
mm,
They do not have the ability to create medication like remdesivir. And what's happening? People are dying. And what did the US do? We were holding back. And I've seen some very progressive politicians, very progressive. They have their heart in the right place, but they would talk about protecting pharma profits and protecting intellectual property. Now, what has happened is pharma companies are contributing to the election campaigns of elected leaders. And you can go look it up. There are stats on this where once the elected leaders have been bought, they recommend vaccinations that are not needed at all. And there is an Ohio state legislator who tried to push the meningitis vaccine upon everybody in Ohio because they were brought by pharma. Pharma is looking to create new source of revenue. Don't get me wrong. The pharma companies are doing great work. I mean, we have some amazing talents. They rolled out the vaccination at warp speed. They are rolling out medications like remdesivir. But the challenge on hand is we need to create generics because this is not the time to profit. This is the time to save people's lives. When you go to Nairobi or when you go to Timbuktu, Nepal, these countries need help. And why are our politicians not really speaking up? Because their hands have been tied. They have been tied. And the big money in politics is completely convoluting the future of America because it is on the hands of politicians who are not stepping up for the people. Why should politicians be there serving? Because you have to keep the best interest of people. Forget about everything else. When you have 4 or 5 or 10 variables in an equation, it's very hard to solve that problem. For me, it has been extremely simple because there's only one variable, which is the people. If I do this, will it help people or hinder people? And this is what I would like to see our politicians changing their behavior. And so we need to purge the big money in politics. Citizens United, we need to shut it down. We need to hold politicians accountable by not supporting them when they have sold out to the system. And the sooner American people realize that, the more future of America, because we'll be making choices that will orient America on the right path.
You brought up pharmaceuticals, and I saw this one post, an article that you had posted about how big pharma was contributing to two-thirds of Congress, or two-thirds of Congress accepted donations or money from big pharma. And I thought that was very interesting, how you kind of posted that article. The one thing I noticed that all of your other posts around it got some likes and views, but this one didn't get any like. So it's interesting. I feel like Facebook may have shadow banned it for you not to get a single like, because I know people will see that and they'll click on it. You know, but that's a very interesting point that you bring up, that pharmaceuticals have their hands in all of these different pockets. Do you think that influenced the vaccine?
No, I mean, I think pharma is obviously, we are a very capitalistic economy and everybody is driven by profit. So the Operation Warp Speed, everybody knew that the first company that rolls out the vaccination would make it like a bandit. And so, I think they're out there on a mission. They attract good talent. They pay good money. But at the same time, I've been talking about this. It's very similar, and I'll just say it. Tech needs to develop a conscience here in Silicon Valley. When you are going to trample upon people's privacy, it's only a matter of time before you will face the consequences. And pharma is sort of in a similar situation. There were, let's say, 700,000 deaths due to opioid in the last 20 years, from 1990 to 2020. In the last 30 years. And what happened is pharma greed. Pharma greed. Pharma should have clamped down and said, no, we are going to prevent these deaths in America. But, if you look at the analysis of the opioid deaths, they blame it upon medication and pharma. Now, could pharma have fixed that? I think, when you have billions and billions of dollars of profit, you have to do the right thing. You have to do the right thing, because my approach on this is very similar to this. Like, when I say, as a politician, if I'm not favoring the people, this platform has been given to me as a gift of God, that here is a gift, make use of it. If I misuse it, you know what happens. The profit is taken away, the red carpet is taken away, the platform is taken away. So everyone needs to be very, very careful how you misuse anything good that is going for you. Be very careful. That's
Right.
all I'm saying.
No, I completely agree with that. I've seen that in my life. Whenever I abuse or misuse something that's going great for me, I always end up, uh, you know, uh, ruining those chances in some way, ruining that future goodness from coming in my life. So I completely agree with that. How do we, so politicians, they have certain set of skills. They have, it's like a unique person can become a politician, especially when, like, you don't have money on your side. You can't buy a lot of things, a lot of ads that can continuously run. So from your journey, what are certain skills and tactics that you have learned to overcome these challenges?
And I always try to keep it very simple. The one thing you have to do is just one thing. It's always one thing. Take that first step. It's like, battling like local challenges. I have no idea. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I feel I should do this.
Mm,
And if I do this, maybe all this will happen, right?
yeah.
And, we can do analysis paralysis, like, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. But I don't. And then you have to be creative. So, for example, with the water company, I remember that moment. There were like many angry residents in our community who were blaming the city council for their super high water rates.
Mm.
You know what I did? I said, "Oh, let's have a meeting." And my wife is like, "There are angry people. Are you sure you want to meet them?" I said, "Of course, let's go meet them." And so I organized a meeting. There were 50 people who came to that meeting. It was a hot day, and I was sweating profusely as I walked into the city office. And a gentleman standing there smirked at me. "Oh, you're sweating already." I smiled. I smiled. I walked in there. There were some pretty angry people. We talked about it. They were still angry by the time we left the meeting. But what happened was I started working. I said, "Look, I need to do something about it." The rest of my city council said, "Rishi, we don't have jurisdiction over San Jose Water Company. The PUC does, the California Public Utility Commission." And I said, "Okay, maybe, but let me try to do something." I took that first step. So I started working, and the story is pretty amazing. We have rejected, reduced, suspended 9 water rate increases. It doesn't happen by sitting and analysis paralysis. I'm going to wait for something magical to happen, or I'm going to wait for somebody to reach out and support me. Like when we did burglaries, we had burglaries. I would have neighborhood meetings. I would print out like 300 flyers and then be walking about. Okay, let's invite people to a meeting. Knock on door, flyer, knock on door, flyer, knock on door, flyer, right? That's what we did. And eventually what happens is the world realizes that this man is crazy and this man needs help. So, and after doing this for a few weeks, the word got around and people started reaching out and said, "Rishi, I want to help you. You're doing something good. How can I help you?" I'm like, this is what we're doing. We're organizing a neighborhood meeting in this neighborhood. Would you please help me? And they're like, "Sure. I'm going to drop off 50 flyers. And this is what happens. If your heart is in the right place, I guarantee you the world will come out to help you. Just give that a try.
Wow, I love those examples. I love those stories. I've also seen that in anything that I've taken on that's for the people. Like a couple of years ago, we put on this Gujarati Unity Festival where we had about 4,000 people come over for the whole weekend. Saturday Sunday thing, and we just started talking about it. Like you said, just go meet people, start talking about it. Like, hey, we're doing this for the community. Money wasn't an issue. Getting people wasn't an issue. Volunteers weren't an issue. Everyone just wanted to come together to do this great thing for the whole community. I feel like you're completely like you nail it on the head right there when you say if it's for the people, when it's for the people, they're going to come out and support you when they hear about it. So in your case, then how is it? Was there any other way that you got the word out other than knocking on doors?
Well, you have to, this the age of digital campaigns. And the very first social media ad that was run in the city of Saratoga was run by me. So, coming from the tech, we are constantly applying the principles of tech with everything we do, the marketing principles, the operational efficiency principles, the communications principles, so everything is applied from there. And it is creating an amazing amount of efficiencies for us in terms of even how we outreach people. So we call it multiple channels of engagement. So, for example, when we do a neighborhood meeting, we will send a message to a neighborhood email group. If there is no email group, then we'll create one. We'll put it on Nextdoor. We'll go door to door. Then we'll put a little banner somewhere announcing the meeting, all that kind of stuff, right? So you have to, because people are very busy, people are not paying attention. So you have to approach them from multiple perspectives. Similar to our campaign, right? If you look at a campaign, we are going door to door, but we are also having social media blast that you are seeing about pharma and the big money convoluting and polluting politics. So we are doing all that kind of stuff. And this is the nature of what we need to do,
That's such a, I love that you're taking that multi approach, going digital, because that's where you find the youth. They're all online. You can easily find them. And then also, for example, you knock on someone's door and they're like, nah, I don't want to be part of it. But then they see you online, they see an ad of yours and they're like, oh, wow, this is very interesting. I just saw this flyer. He just dropped it off. Oh, that's really cool. Synchronicity. And they'll jump on board.
I'll give you a quick example, many examples, because that's all I have. We were running this open mic in our downtown Saratoga, and because our businesses were hurting and our community, Saratoga is a quaint little town, a bedroom community for Silicon Valley, single family homes, and our neighbors would actually go to like Sunnyvale or Cupertino to do their shopping. And I said, look, we have a small little downtown here. Why don't we use the businesses? So I launched something. I called it an open mic. And this was like, let's all show up and let's sing and also do some shopping to help our businesses out. And we would do it on like a Friday evening. Let's enjoy the restaurants, and then we'll sit down and get a cup of wine from that coffee shop that was hosting us. Sit down and make some new friends. And the first time I did that, I literally had to call 5 friends and say, please show up. And they're like, okay, because this guy's asking, okay, let me do it. And then, the second one, I had to call like 10 people because those 5 are not going to show up. So you call 10 people and eventually 5 show up. But, if you are a man on a mission, they look at you and they say, this crazy guy is not going to stop. So there was a time, and I would say just about like 3 or 4 months later, that place, that coffee shop would barely seat 20 people. And we had 50, 60 people who were parked out on the hallway, out on the patio. And it just became like, I couldn't walk. I mean, I had to get to the stage. I was like falling upon people. It was kind of like that, right? So if you persist in something, then again, magic will happen. It's just a matter of time. And if you believe in that, then you'll keep moving ahead.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. If you persist, magic will happen. One of the main kind of goals of this show is to inspire anybody who's looking to get into a new kind of career. Because politicians, Indians, we're not really in politics that much. Very few and far in between. So someone is looking to get started. What can we say? What can you encourage them, and how can they get started in politics?
It's very simple. It's very simple. Figure out something that you can work in your community. even if it is the most complex problem or even if it is the most simplest of problem, but pick one thing to get started. Just do something and you will find a path opening. And you don't have to go far. You don't have to solve the global hunger or climate change. Start in your neighborhood, right there in your local city, and figure out how you can. But the most important thing is persist. Once you figure out it's a problem that a lot of people will benefit from, if you find a solution, then persist, 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 and you will find a path opening up for sure. Guaranteed, given.
And what would you tell advice? What advice would you give parents with kids who are wanting to go into politics? Because a lot of the times it's parents that are stopping our kids from pursuing this new career path that not a lot of Indians know about, Desis know about. So, what advice would you give our parents?
So the thing is, we all want our children to be happy, and they are truly happy when they are doing something that is in union with their hearts. So what I say this: if you're doing something fun, when you're following what your heart wants, then you're never truly working. And the story goes like this: that this fisherman was sitting by the beach, and this amazing businessman shows up in like a really like super expensive $1 million boat, and he's like there on the island, and he's like, how many of you guys live here? He's like, oh, 20 of us. And who owns this place? Like, we own it. He's like, okay, so why don't we do this? I'm going to get you a nice boat. Look at your crappy boat. I'll get you a nice boat. I'll get you the best gear, and you can go out and fish, and you can catch a lot more fish. Fisherman says, and what will happen after that? He's like, oh, you'll make a lot more money. He's like, and oh, you would do extremely well. You would have a lot more boats running for you. You would have people working for you, just like I have today. Like, and you'll do really well. You'll make a lot of money, and one fine day you'll retire. You'll buy an island, just like I have an island like right next door, and I'm enjoying a fabulous life. And the fisherman says, but I'm already doing that today. I'm right here enjoying my life.
Wow, I love that example. Um, yeah, that is so true. Just whatever the kids enjoy, let them do it, let them pursue it. It took me a while to realize what I like, and it was kind of an exploration, just a journey figuring out what that is. Uh, and this is a whole new process for you, right? Getting into politics. What was the most shocking or surprising thing that you learned from this whole process?
The world is not always kind, and the world will make up stories, smear campaigns, and you have to face it. You have to face it like a man. And when you look at how a parent may guide a child, at the end of the day, if a child is happy, and the parent is happy, because sometimes we go through struggles. We don't know what a mission in life is, and if we have figured out that path, the education is very important. Let's create a foundation of education. A bachelor's degree is important, but after that, let the child try out and see what they would like to do. And in fact, my story is, my dad pushed me into an education because he felt that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something else. And so I went through that education. I was very unhappy, but eventually I came into my career, and I did what I did, right? So this is extremely important, that we allow everybody a little broad leverage to do what they would like to do. And in spite of, I go back to that theory, where when an elephant is walking the street, there will be dogs standing on the sidelines and barking. They'll be barking. Now, as an elephant, are you going to respond? Like, my brother told me this when I was in like ninth grade or something, and I still remember this, because this is what motivates me. Like, people will on the water stuff, people say Rishi never worked on water. I'm like, okay, there are a million people who benefited, so I'll leave it at that, right? I'm not going to play the game of trying to defend the work that we have done. You just keep forging ahead, right? And what happens is, people get very nervous around you. When they get nervous, you're doing something right. Keep doing it. Simple.
I love that advice. When people get nervous, keep doing what what you're doing. Um, how can people join your campaign?
Oh, it's very simple. We have two types of volunteers, and anybody who's working already with who's graduated from college can join us as a volunteer. But today, when we started the campaign in 2019, we had 4 directors and about 30 volunteers. Last year, we had 14 directors and about 1,000 volunteers. So we grew very quickly. This year, we have about 35 directors. They are leading functional areas like social media, like digital campaigns, digital marketing, or the whole field operation, or data analytics. So a campaign is very complex, and we currently have about 35, 36 moving parts in a campaign, and there's plenty of opportunity for you to apply your skills and volunteer in a campaign, and then you take that into the real world and you will succeed, which is also my story. One of our campaign volunteers was a master's in human resources, and she came in and she was actually leading our human resources team. We had 4 directors, and she was basically managing the whole recruitment process with our internship, interviewing, onboarding, start to end, start to finish. And after doing this for a few months, she interviewed and she had an amazing story she could tell. And so she was hired by Equinix, which is one of phenomenal companies out here. She got hired by them. So, if you take the volunteer experience seriously, I mean, it's only a volunteer. Okay, I don't have to go all out. But the learning is tremendous. And plus, the volunteer opportunity allows you to experiment. Even if something goes wrong, hey, it's a volunteer gig, and you have experimented, you have tried something, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? So go to rishikumar.com/volunteer. And if any student watching this, high school or college, you can go to rishikumar.com/fellowship, apply for the internship that we are going to close on Sunday. Sunday, the doors are going to close. And because the summer is already breaking out, thank you for the URL. And, if you apply, we'll invite you for an interview. And then you'll join a few hundred college and high school students who are actually doing some amazing work. You will have a solid good time during this summer. No more summer slumber. You will be having a great time. So join us.
Wow, I love that you have this internship program available for kids in the summer. Everyone that's watching, please join in on this. Take advantage of this internship. I completely agree when you said that volunteer work will help you learn a lot more about not only yourself, but just how people work in general and how organizations work in general. When I volunteered for the Gujarati Society of Southern California, my first time leading anything, I learned so much. That's what made me a better leader and where I am today. That helped me speak with people and be able to better communicate with people. So I feel like there's a lot of benefits that anyone can take from any kind of volunteering, but especially in politics with Rishi Kumar. Definitely go to rishikumar.com, check out his campaign, check out what he's about. He has some very interesting work that he's doing, and all of these examples that he's given have given us tremendous amount of insight on who this person is. So I please go check out rishikumar.com and donate your time, donate your money, whatever it may be. Support the campaign because he's doing some amazing grassroots work, and we need the people behind him, especially our Indian people. Because come on, we got to support our own. So come on, guys, let's go out to rishikumar.com, hit him up, contact him. He's always available for talking, and he's a great person to get some really good advice from. Rishi Kumar, any last words you have?
It's great to be on your show. I really appreciate what you are doing, having this dialogue, communications to inspire the youth of the next generation, getting them motivated, fired up, and going. I really appreciate that. It needs all of us to take charge, and you are doing some very amazing work. So, congratulations to you and all your followers. I can see folks from South Africa and all over the world joining this. And it's a great time. Follow me on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, and we can stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rishi, for being here. It was such wonderful to have you answer all these questions to gain insights onto who you are as a person. Like you said at the very beginning of this interview, we are on the same path. It's exactly right. You said it. You hit it right, spot on. We are both in this path of love and abundance and sharing what's inside of us with the people around us. So, Rishi Kumar, thank you so much for being here. Keep doing what you're doing. I love the work that you're doing. Have a fantastic day.
All
Thank you,
right.
everybody, for joining in Love and Abundance.
Thank you.